Well, here we go. Welcome to the Profit Tool Belt podcast. This is just for contractors. Look, if you serve commercial or residential customers and you're interested in the business of the contracting business, then welcome. You know, you probably are looking for an unfair advantage. You want to know things that other people don't know so you can take some secret angle and find this perfect customer who pays more than market value for the kind of work that you do, the kind of customer you love working for that's hidden from you normally. That's the kind of thing you're looking for, right? Well, this is how you get it, this show, because that's exactly how we show you, or what we show you to do, is to find the customers that other contractors have already figured out how to get, how to run profitable jobs, how to find the right people, how to train people properly so they do the kind of work you need done when you're not there. And to that end, I have a great guest for us today. Today's guest is Leah Diteljan. Now, Leah and I are going to be talking about something you won't expect. Our topic today is, why are you actually angry? Now, if deep inside you have some seething anger, some frustration that you can't solve, this is the show for you. Now, one of the jokes I make to myself sometimes is from the Marvel universe. You know, when the Hulk turns around in the Avengers movie and he says, "That's my secret. I'm always angry." Uh, Sometimes that's me. And I wonder if it's you too. So you're going to get a lot of value out of today's meeting with Leah. You should look her up on LinkedIn. Her name is Leah Diteljan. It's a pretty unique last name. Leah is spelled Leah, and her last name is Diteljan, Diteljan. And you can find her there. You can also find her, I'm sure, on Facebook. You can find me on Facebook on the Contractor Strategy Group, which is a fantastic group, by the way. The last valuable corner of Facebook. It's just for contractors. We only talk contractor talk on there. Love to have you in there so you're inside the conversation. We talk about pricing, profitability, people, teams, strategy, sales, all of those things. Anyways, look, why is this episode important? Because you might think, well, actually, Dom, I'm not angry. I don't know why I'd listen to this at all. The reason it's important is because but before you do anything, you have to do something else first. I learned that from Brian Tracy, my mentor and business partner in my last company. Before you do anything, you have to do something else first, right? Before we can build, we need blueprints. Before we get blueprints, we need an architect. Before a project gets an architect, it needs a vision, right? Before a project gets a vision, it needs funding. And so it always goes in that circle. Before you do anything, you must do something else first. And maybe, just maybe, your anger, your frustration, your lack of clarity is what needs to be worked on first. And I don't know for you, but it has been a limiter for me from time to time. When I get frustrated with my team or with a vendor or with a client, where does that anger show up and how does that move our relationship apart? Well, how does that show up in my leadership? And then how does that flow through the company? Is that the kind of company I want to have? You just get so stressed and frustrated with somebody some days. Maybe it's a family member. I don't know. We have lots of family businesses who listen to this show. Anyways, Leah and I are going to unpack this anger or frustration issues against leadership, against team building, against time management, against your level of satisfaction in the business, your level of heartache you have for your business, and how to build a company filled with the right people so you can delegate and grow. Because maybe one day you want to sell the business or pass it on to the kids or pass it on to your management team through an ESOP. Well, the only way to do that is when it doesn't run without you. Like it has to run without you being there, right? You have to have other people to help you, and to have the other people help you, you can't alienate them or push them away by being angry or frustrated. All that does is create a system where you're the hero and you have to answer every question. They have to do it exactly your way every single time. So we're back to the beginning. Before you do anything, you must do something else first. Let's get to the episode. But if you do want to talk to me and learn about one-on-one business coaching or the Construction Millionaire Bootcamp or any of the other products or services that we provide to contractors like yourself, just send me a text. My cell phone number is 315-903-7853 and just say, Dom, let's talk. Then you know what we'll do? We'll talk. And listen, as you know, this podcast is all about the mindset of growth and success for you as a business owner. So I tell some dad jokes. Now, I tell dad jokes because I want to lighten the mood. I want to open your mind to the possibilities. I want you to see everything that's available in front of you, like walking out of the doors of the Denver airport, big sky country. You could see all of the possibility there. I want you to have that in front of you. And I can do that when I change your mindset by getting you laughing. And I want to get you opening in your head, in your mind, in your imagination to hear what our guest Leah has to say. So I got a couple of dad jokes for you. And I hope that you deliver them better than I do, because I know you're going to take these and deliver them to somebody else. You ready for them? Because they're coming. They're coming at you fast. I don't know if you guys know this, but I play violin. Anyways, one day I slapped my violin. I was angry. And then I got arrested for domestic violence. Oh, come on. I started so low there. I've set the expectations for low expectations, right? But since we're on the topic of anger, what happens when an ice cube gets angry? Well, it boils with anger and then lets off some steam. All right. Here's a quick story for you. There's a contractor in Miami, just finishes a huge mansion right on the water. The job turns out really profitable. You know, he knows his end of job reports. He has his profit margins. He managed his team properly, managed it to the nth degree. And his job turns out really profitable. So he takes his wife downtown for a great meal in the nicest part of town. It's called Bowel Harbor. It's about an hour drive from his home. It takes him an hour to drive there, right? It's a super nice area. So his wife and I are walking after the meal. And just as they're walking, the wife spots a beautiful diamond necklace in the jewelry store window. So she says to her husband, can we just go inside? I just want to take a look at it. I just want to look, she says. Now, although she wants this diamond necklace, he doesn't have that kind of money to buy it for her, but he promises her that it'll be hers one day. Anyways, a month goes by, dinner's on the table. The wife is at home wondering where on earth her husband is because he's still not home. So she's pretty angry and she calls his cell phone. Where the heck are you? She yells. The contractor says, honey, calm down. Do you remember that jewelry store where you saw the diamond necklace and totally fell in love with it? And I didn't have the money at that time. And I said, baby, it'll be yours one day. Well, her attitude changes completely. She's like, oh my God, oh darling, oh my God. Yes, of course I remember that. The husband says, good. You see, I'm at the bar just next to that shop. Oh, I dare you guys to tell that story when you go home. I'd love to see it. I'd love to hear about it. Hey, listen, though, we're on an anger theme. A young girl is writing a paper for school. She goes to her dad and says, Dad, what's the difference between anger and exasperation? The father says, well, honey, it's mostly a matter of degree. Let me show you what I mean. So the dad goes to the phone and he dials a number, just randomly picks a number. The man answers the phone. He says, hey, hello, is Melvin there? The man answers, there's nobody living here named Melvin. Why don't you learn to look up numbers before you dial? So the father hangs up the phone. He turns to his daughter and says, see, that man was not a bit happy with our call. He's probably busy with something and we annoyed him. Now watch. So the father dials the exact same number again. And he says, hello, is Melvin there? Now look here, comes the guy on the other end of the line. You just called this number and I told you there's no Melvin here. You got a lot of guts calling me again. The receiver gets slammed down hard, right? The father turns to his daughter and says, now you see, that was anger. Now I'll show you what exasperation means. So the father goes and he dials the exact same number for the third time. The guy answers the phone and he yells, hello. And the father calmly says, hello, this is Melvin. Have there been any calls for me? That's exasperation. All right, listen, folks, stay until the end of the show. We got a specific training segment where I simplify and solve a common business problem. Today's story comes to us from two guys named Noel and Paul. That, as you know already, that's not their real names, but they do start with N and P. It's a father and son team who do home renos in the Mideast. The son was a semi-pro baseball player, so there's kind of an athletic angle to that. Remember, guys, you can always shoot me a text if you have questions, you want to talk about your business. My cell phone number is 315-903-7853, and just say, Dom, let's talk. And you know what we'll do? We'll talk. All right, let's get to it. Leah Diteljan, how are you? I haven't seen you in forever.
Oh, I'm glowing. Thank you. I feel like I'm thriving. It's so good to see you, Dom.
I know. And you just came back from some serious international travel, like exotic. Where'd you
Yeah,
go?
I was just in Croatia. It is exquisite.
Yeah.
I just feel so at home there. It's so safe. It's so beautiful. It's all about love. It's
Oh,
amazing.
is it the whole
Yes.
country?
The whole country and every interaction I had was
I know
amazing.
they've had some political troubles in the past, where
Yes, yes.
it
It's a
wasn't about love, but I'm glad to see they bounced back.
strong understatement. Yes, absolutely. They've bounced well.
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
now that people are completely confused by our intro, maybe we should set the stage for how the heck I know you, what the heck you were doing in Croatia, and what this has to do with business and contracting in general. Because I think people are going to be surprised, right?
That's my hope.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you a tough question here.
Okay,
Ready?
ready.
Leah Diteljan, who the heck are you? And how is it you come to be speaking to all these forward-facing contractors all over the world?
Well, I I'm so honored to be here because I've worked for over 13 years, working in 30 different countries, working with extremely inspiring leaders and entrepreneurs and their teams to really get to the core of what builds connection and synergy on teams and in interpersonal dynamics. And so it doesn't matter whether you're literally diving for treasure or building a building or excavating something or doing someone's hair. At the
Yeah.
core of leadership, it always depends on communication.
Yeah. I remember the first time you and I worked together, it sort of culminated or ended in our board went to Frankfurt for a global
Mhm.
conference. And
Yeah.
you had a big part in how that board worked and how it came together and all of the, just like you said, the communication. And,
Mhm.
I think the people listening might be going, what are you talking about? Frankfurt and Croatia? What podcast am I listening to? Because they are in Springfield or in Seattle or Toronto or Waterloo. And they're, what are we? What groove did we just fall into? But that's the kind of world that you and I really work in. If you look at it globally, is leadership, business is business, people are
Mhm.
people.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So tell me what you're doing in Croatia, because that's the most recent, and it sounds pretty cool. I can't wait to go myself.
Dom, it was a bucket list item and it was my second year and I cannot wait to go back again next year. So I got to facilitate connection for a group of about 30 leaders on a super yacht for an entire week.
Okay. I didn't know that part. Yeah, we just lost a bunch. Okay. Well, listen, there's some people listening to this show who work on super yachts. They do the electronics, they do the nav, they maybe do the woodwork. Or I myself have never been on a super yacht. So tell me what's it like to be on a super yacht and who goes to that kind of event?
So let's bring it down to earth for a second because it's actually a lot more approachable than that one liner sounds. So it's like a floating hotel.
Okay.
So you're basically cruising around to exceptional places, having once in a lifetime experiences, dining with people that are like-minded and having
Mm.
encouraging conversations with people that want to have the same experience of Croatia. And so you have your own room and everything is taken care of because there's an in-house crew and a team and you just show up and you set it and forget it. It was quite phenomenal.
Interesting. So I didn't know that about you before we jumped on this call. I should have done more homework, but super yacht isn't usually in my pre-questions. So you have to excuse me. But one of the things that I remind myself, and you and I have known each other through business and personally for a long, long time, right?
Years. Yeah.
It's who you hang out with,
Mhm.
right? We are more like the people that we choose to associate with than we're not.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
the other day, actually, I got in trouble the other day because I was talking about that on on the podcast, and I said, if you hang out with people that go to chili contests and just sit at the barbecue pit all the time, then of course you're gonna be more like those people. And somebody emailed me back, was like, actually, I really like competitive barbecue. I was like, oh, sorry about that. But what I meant was, I guess I meant that if you really want to be a competitive barbecue person, you hang out with people and you talk about, I can't even make this up, barbecues and I guess wood selections and temperatures. And so you become more like those people. If you want to be a student of success, if you want to be a student of personal growth, if you want to be a student of leadership, then you hang out with people who don't do leadership. They talk about and do leadership and they think about that. Is that the crew that you were with? Crew is the
Yeah.
wrong word since you're on a super yacht.
Yeah,
But that's the people that were there.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. We were thinking and doing and feeling about leadership and who we want to
Mm.
be as better people. And so that can be barbecuing and being the best at your craft and making the best chili, right? That's an easy thing to want to be really great
Okay, I'll
at.
take my beating. I'll take my beating. That's fine. I think I was on the health track at that point in my mind, so I didn't mean to slam barbecue. I've just alienated all of the South. They're all like, that Rubino guy, delete episode.
Every tailgater.
Every tailgater everywhere. Yeah. Yeah. So without getting into, obviously confidentiality is important, and I would imagine, especially on that type of event, but give us a sense of what kind of leaders and maybe even the industries that would be on that thing. So we understand as leaders in construction and contracting, who would be there.
Mm-hmm. I mean, last year we had a cabinet maker from Nashville, Tennessee. He was a young guy. He was building his company. He was super hungry and he's like, this is not really my jam. I'm not used to talking about what's going on the inside, but wow, once I started, I couldn't stop. So it was really cool to see him come in his own. We actually had a couple stuntmen that were on there that have been in kind of acting and stuff their whole lives. And so they just wanted to experience Croatia and they didn't expect it. We had a former professional World Cup rugby player that was there. So there's some real like masculine presences on the boat. We had some commercial realtors. We had a serial entrepreneur in more of the manufacturing space is where he kind of started. So there was quite a variety. And then there was a bunch of women as well, actually, in real estate, in retail, in, yeah, those kinds of things. So it was quite a variety of industry.
Yeah. I mean, not surprising because your specialty is leadership development, helping leaders become better leaders and hone those skills. What was are you allowed to say what your topic was or what your theme was there as one of the facilitators?
Yes, I wanted to elevate people's self-awareness.
Oh, that's good because you know what today's topic is. I mean, you do know what today's topic is. Today's topic
was that rhetorical?
We'll see. Why are you actually angry? That's what you and I are going to talk about today is why are you actually angry? And so for the contractors listening to this who find themselves angry today or angry yesterday and regretting it or think they might get angry tomorrow, why are you actually angry? So I think you're the perfect guest for that because you just came back from facilitating that kind of conversation in Croatia. I feel like I should say that with my pinky up as I'm drinking.
You know what? Coffee. That's the best way that you can drink coffee, Dom.
Really? Pinky up?
Never stop. Yeah, exactly.
Just be yourself.
Be yourself.
Carve the path. Yeah. Hey, by the way, did that specific conversation come up on this last event? Like why
anger?
Yeah. And dealing with it.
We touched anger a little bit. We actually started with shame because it's even more of an isolating emotion than anger. And I think today anger, I think, is a really helpful one to lead with is because it's one that we all have a vocabulary for. We all know when we're angry and when we're not angry. So I think it's very relatable.
And guide me through this.
Okay. So when I answer the question, why am I actually angry? It's because someone or something is in the way of me getting what I want. And when I simplify that and understand, okay, what part is that someone or that something playing in this scenario? I understand that it's actually a mask for me deflecting my own personal responsibility of the circumstance.
Oh, so when I'm angry at you, Leah, I'm making this up, by the way. I'm not angry.
Yeah.
I've never been angry with you in my life. But let's just say I was angry at you because something didn't get delivered to site. I'm actually angry because I thought my instructions were clear. I thought I'd paid that invoice. I thought the elevator would be unlocked. I thought my team had already done X, Y, or Z, or I thought I hadn't forgotten. Like ultimately it comes back to personal responsibility.
Yeah, I think so.
Hurts. That hurts to hear that.
It hurts. It hurts initially because when we turn the finger back at ourselves, initially there's a real disappointment. Like I remember thinking I should have sent that email to check in on that. And if I would have just done that, I wouldn't be angry now because it would have got done.
Yeah. It's interesting because one of the things I've been studying lately is Stoicism, Stoic thought, Stoic philosophy. And it really does come back to personal responsibility.
Yeah.
You know, it's up, my response to what happens is up to me. Yes. And it still doesn't feel good to hear it.
No.
Right?
No.
Can I tell you I wonder if this came up at all when we talk about leadership and this, why am I actually angry,
Mhm.
is around people
Mhm.
and realizing I made a bad hiring decision. So I
Mm.
hired the wrong person, A,
Yeah.
or I hired the right person, but it's somehow I let it go off the rails. So I didn't support them, train them, onboard. Did that come up
Totally.
in the conversation at all?
I think it's a great example. It's super relatable for leaders because when we put people before process and expect the person that we hire to do what is in our head instead of how we're communicating it to them, we're going to get disappointed and angry every single time.
We put people before process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
How
is
many
hard for
times?
me to say as a people oriented person, but in order to really scale and grow, we need to put processes before people sometimes.
Oh, I just heard a domestic this weekend. So I was
Oh,
I was up at our cabin, our cottage,
hmm,
and there was a
yeah,
leak. I found a leak in the roof, which is exactly what you want to see when you got limited time at the cabin,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
And so it just so happens I had a massive tarp. So I went up on the roof with like a shaky ladder. This was all bad. There's no OSHA around to watch me. But while I'm up on the roof, there's a house being built. If I say across the street, we're talking about cabin country. It's like quarter of a mile away, right?
Right.
But I could hear a husband yelling at his wife, who was clearly helping them on some project.
Yeah.
And I could hear him yelling, but also trying to be gentle. And it was funny. It was just
Forgive
funny.
me. That would be, yeah.
It was just funny. Yeah.
We love hearing other people's drama, right? I think that's a human
I
experience
know.
that we
I
all
was trying
kind
to
of
hear him
delight in a little
communicate
bit.
about you left the pump on, but there's no water going into it, and so that's what he was trying to explain why she needed to turn off the pump sooner
Mhm.
because she was going to drain the pump and blow the thing out. But hearing him say it angry, but trying to not sound angry,
Mhm.
it didn't come across at all. It
It
just came
probably
across as
did.
angry.
It probably didn't work so well, right?
Yeah, she probably left for a
Well,
few minutes.
it's a great example. I mean, if we want to use like the partner example, or if we want to use working with a bunch of family members within your own business, we can use
Yeah.
that example. But those dynamics and anger and the relationship we have to anger that shows up in the way that we communicate with those people in our lives, those primary
Mm,
people, are the only way I think that we can really shift that is when we understand that our power comes from responding versus reacting. And so that's that pause
mm.
before we say something, but then also getting underneath that pause and deciding, whoa, I'm angry. Because the second I recognize that I'm feeling angry, I'm actually not angry because I'm observing the anger,
Oh, wow, that's pretty heavy.
right?
So yeah, that's where you're taking accountability, responsibility.
Yeah.
You've got
It's
perspective
like,
on yourself.
yeah, because when I'm flipping a gasket and freaking out, which doesn't happen often, and get out of the way if I am, but if it does, it's been very infrequent, mostly in childhood. But if it does, the anger consumes me. I'm not aware of the anger. The second I become aware of the anger, I'm not
Right.
angry.
Okay.
Hmm.
So you just laid out an interesting string there, which is
Hmm.
family.
Yeah.
So somebody, well, and in contracting, probably as much as the restaurant business, there are
Yeah.
family dynamics,
Hmm.
right? You just see lots of family businesses, whether it's a brother or a sister or sister-in-law working in the company with you, or in somebody that's family, or even
Yeah.
I also see the case where people who are partners who've been working together for long enough that they're like family.
Hmm. Totally.
But there's that anger. And sometimes these are things that can't be like, you can't fire a business partner who happens to be your family member. I mean,
No.
you can, but that leads to a whole other world of hurt.
Yeah.
So instead of getting angry with something that's happening or not happening, what do I do? Let's say I recognize that I've been getting angry at
Hmm.
Dominic.
Yep.
Let's blame Dom. Yeah.
Okay, let's blame Dom. All right.
Wow, that was fast. It's a quick turnaround.
I love a good example. Okay, so I think something else, this percentage might be slightly inaccurate, but it's something like 90% of things that trigger us and make us angry are actually about past circumstances versus the current circumstance.
Hmm.
That person is just reminding you of a past experience that you haven't actually resolved. So in a family dynamic, it couldn't be more magnified because
40 years
there's
of
40
previous.
years of generational junk that just keeps repeating itself because this is the way that we've always done it. That's the way Dom is. I'm not going to try to change Dom. He's in my family. He's not going anywhere.
Mhm.
Leah can then take the power upon herself to change the way that she communicates with Dom. And then Dom is eventually going to see that Leah has changed the way she communicates. And then he might actually start to shift as well.
Right. There's a huge maturity in that I can only change myself. I can't change
Yeah.
other people.
No. And
Right.
that's what anger is. It's wanting to change somebody else and being attached to being correct as well. It's
Yeah, I
very
wish everybody,
self-righteous.
I know this is going to sound ridiculous, but it's fine. I make jokes on the show all the time. If the world, I can't even do this with a straight face, but if the world was perfect, everybody'd be like me. They
Yeah.
would get what I get. They'd understand what I understand.
Exactly.
I wouldn't have to
Yeah.
say it out loud.
Yeah.
How many
It's
people are
true.
managing projects right now and they're shaking their head laughing, saying, I
Mhm.
know in my mind what I want it to look like. I can't even use the words to explain it, but that post has to go there. That beam's got, it says it on the plans. Why do I have to re-explain it? But explaining it more makes it worse. And then we get angry.
Yeah. Yep.
Hmm. Well, have we resolved anything yet, Leah? No, we've just talked about the problem. So walk me through the steps. So let's say that Dom has come to you, and because I know
Mhm.
you do this with people one-on-one. So let's just
Yep.
say that I'm at that point where I recognize, look, I'm getting angry. It's really not getting anywhere. I have to fix things because I'm not going to, my business partner, Leah, she's not going anywhere.
Yep.
So give me some tools. Walk me through, I'm sure there's an acronym or a system or a take 10 breaths or think about puppies or something.
I mean, you can try all of those things in any order you want. I wouldn't say any of those are bad, but I think I would stop and look at the person and just hold them there with my eyes and say, what are you protecting yourself from saying?
So if I'm angry with you,
Yep.
I have to ask myself, what am I protecting?
Yeah, myself from saying. Because usually what we're saying in anger is not really what needs to be said,
Oh,
because it's mostly blame. It's mostly the stuff that we wish we didn't say. And so if we get really honest with ourselves,
hmm,
what is it that I'm protecting myself from? I'm protecting myself from looking like I'm stupid. I'm protecting myself from taking the blame from actually making a mistake.
hmm,
I'm protecting myself from a time I remember when my dad got really angry at me, and I still carry that.
hmm. So that's what I have to. So then how would I respond to you? I'd say, Leah, I'm mad at you for some reason. And
Okay.
it's a reason that, sits on the outside of the circle of why I'm mad, is what you're saying,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
And so
Yep.
what instead I should do is say, Leah, I'm angry, but the reason I'm angry is because we didn't deal with building a system for dealing with this years
Mm-hmm.
ago. Is
Yeah. Yep.
is
And
that
I don't
the
expect
right?
that to come right away. Like that's probably going to be a walk away, take some reflection time, and then come back and create some repair. That might not be in the moment. In the
Mm,
moment, all of a sudden recognizing you're angry, like if you feel that flood and that red flash, and then you see the person's reaction on their face, then there's a moment where you can say, okay, hang on.
okay.
Just give me a second to reflect on where this is coming from.
Hmm,
And then they might keep going at you because now they're angry because they're mirroring your anger. And then you can say, you know what, I just need another second. And then go ahead and say, but by saying, I feel I'm angry, that might seem kind of brave for some people, but it's actually really accurate and it takes the charge out of it.
hmm,
And just start there and then explain why you're angry.
yeah.
It, if you didn't see a lot of repair and healthy repair when you were younger or even as an adult, it might seem really scary to suddenly lean into this and expect to be like a deer on ice. You're going to
Well,
be clumsy initially,
yeah,
but go
yeah.
for it. Go
It
for it. It's
seems, it
fear, not
seems,
danger.
it seems very soft and vulnerable, and we're contractors.
Yeah.
So yeah. Like this is
Okay.
not in my mind, and I don't know everybody listening. I wish I did, but I don't know everybody listening. But they're like, that's not how I talk. I'm not going to
Okay.
stop and say I feel. So I'm not discounting this process. I'm saying, how do I get myself there? And what I think I'm hearing from you is it really comes down to my personal responsibility.
Yeah.
Somehow I have to change something,
Hmm.
right? So I've had this situation before where somebody says to me, uh, I hate it when people are late, by the way. Let's start with that.
Mm,
Late is
yeah,
disrespectful to me,
totally.
right? 5 minutes early is just on time.
Hmm.
On time is late. So let's start with that, right? Because I'm a busy person. I work to a schedule, et cetera, et cetera, which by the way is totally different when you're dealing with some other countries, right? Tuesday at
Yeah.
10 to them means maybe Tuesday. And that just drives me nuts. So,
Yeah.
but not in North America. So I've had people say to me, or I've had one specific person say to me, Dom, you don't understand. I'm late today because they've been working on the highway for 3 months and it's made me late every day. And at some point, I just have to say to this person, hey, listen, you could leave earlier. If they've been working on the highway for 3 months and it made you late every day, why didn't you leave earlier? And their
Hmm.
response back, very matter of fact, was, what am I going to do? Sit in the parking lot until work starts? So they didn't want to get to work early.
Yeah.
And so, really, the problem I had is I set the wrong expectations and I hired the wrong person and I let it go on for too long.
Hmm.
But the anger at that moment is, why are you late? You can't
Yeah.
be late. And
Yeah.
in reality, the background of that is all those other things.
Hmm.
Did
Hmm.
I share too much?
No, not
Is
at
that me?
all. I think it's a very relatable example. I mean, time is so precious. And when somebody's not respecting our time, it does create an anger. And then when we give them a chance to explain why they're being late and they come back with something we're even less satisfied with,
I think
then
that's called ridiculous, by the way, but we'll call it less satisfied with. Thank you. Pinky up. Let me just do this. Pinky. I'm less satisfied with that answer. Oh
I'm
my,
less
my
satisfied with
super
that. Should have I
yacht.
even asked that? Then it is a question of, okay, what was my process? How did we get here? Unless you want to have a
Mm.
deeper conversation.
Yeah, I know. What I want is for people to get educated here today on dealing with this because we all get angry. I can't say that. I would
Mhm.
imagine that if people are like me, get angry from time to time,
Yep.
but that anger comes from something else. And if I find myself getting angry and it's affecting my relationship, like a working relationship, then there's a real consequence, right? There's an economic
Mhm.
consequence, there's a personal consequence, probably weighs on me as I'm going home.
Yeah, big time. Big time. Well, the first step is identifying that you're even angry and then understanding why are you angry and doing that by yourself. And then do you set time aside with that person to have the conversation to express that you are angry?
Mm.
Because what's not productive is bottling it up. That's the same energy as it is raging on someone.
It's just raging
So
inside you.
raging inside. So it's
Wait,
the same thing. It's like having a soda pop bottle and shaking it up, but never taking off the lid. Like it's got to go somewhere.
right. Well, that's why we get ulcers, Leah. That's
Yeah.
that's how that's how a lot of people deal with stuff. We just bottle it up.
Yeah.
I am impressed when I meet business leaders. These are serious contractors running very successful businesses, and they're always the same in their tone. They really don't change their tone when they're happy or when they're not happy. It's
Hmm.
always the same. I mean, there's a little fluctuation, but you can't tell that there's frustration. They're just very even keeled.
Yeah.
And those kind of companies run a certain way, as do companies where somebody is like
Hmm. Totally.
spikes in their
Yeah.
anger. Um, but I'm always very impressed when I see people who are level or even keeled, I guess, like level
Hmm.
in their
Hmm.
conversations and in their communication style, even though I know they're burning inside.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah. I think I'm 50-50. I'm halfway on either. I'm
You've got
halfway
that
on.
passion though.
Yeah, right. So I have that passion, but that's not an excuse for not taking the personal responsibility to deal with things.
Hmm.
What I'm learning from you is taking that time, and that time, my trigger for that time to pass is milliseconds.
Yep.
Like we're talking cat seeing a snake reaction time. Like when a
Yep.
cat sees a snake and it
Yes,
just automatically
exactly.
jumps for this. How am I? And now you're suggesting I take a moment. I'm already in the air. We're coming back down by the time I recognize it, right?
And that's okay, right? That doesn't mean that you've messed up. It just means that you're going to the gym and working on this same process, just as you are your biceps.
Yeah. So what were some of the takeaways? Because you were with some other people that had a variety of backgrounds, but definitely leaders. You talked about entrepreneurs and people in retail and
Mhm.
somebody who's a cabinet maker. What
Mhm.
were their takeaways at the end? Like what was their newfound path?
So some of my favorites were, wow, I did not think being vulnerable and talking about how I feel was going to be worth it at all. I just thought it was just fluffy woo-woo stuff that
Mm,
other people do. And I honestly love hearing that because
really?
one, they took the chance to even go for it
Right.
and they felt a difference in themselves in the relationships that they created on this boat after
Mm,
being there for a week, and they noticed a change in themselves. So I think that part was really rewarding. I think for a couple people, what they didn't expect was that by sharing some things that they try to hide,
right.
like stories or just things that are terrible that have happened to them, by leading with them, they all of a sudden weren't hiding anymore. They were able to show all of themselves, be totally authentic, and they were making friends quicker and they were having more fun more quickly. It's
Mm,
kind of like when you go to a party and everybody just gathers in the kitchen until, the alcohol kind of starts to kick in and then people start to open up. This
right.
is what can happen with these conversations as
Oh,
well that don't require alcohol.
that don't require alcohol. Yeah.
Croatian's wine's fantastic though.
It's it's pretty good. Yeah.
Mhm.
My dad is from a town that's right across from Split,
No
the town of Split.
way.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. So he's got some
Oh,
spicy
wow.
stories that get told about sailors who get caught in a storm. The Italian sailors go to Split and the Croatian sailors go to Bari, which is my, and so
Oh my gosh, I bet he
so the
has some great
23 and me
stories.
crosses that border pretty quickly.
I'm sure it does.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
funny.
Um, but the takeaway for all of us comes back again to personal responsibility.
Mhm.
And it doesn't, you know, I study leadership and I know you study it as well because you teach it. Leadership means I'm going somewhere we haven't gone before,
Mhm.
right? So for
Yeah.
instance, if you're $1 million contractor right now, I'm just going to pick that number, and you're making your way to being a $1.5 million contractor, you've never been there before.
Mhm.
So to put that stress on yourself that you know what's going to happen, it's tough. And so maybe saying to your team, you've got a strategic plan. You and I know the EOS model really well, right?
Mhm.
Hey, team, we're at 1 million now. We're going to 1.5. I'm going to take us there, and you're the team that's coming with me. I've never been to 1.5 million before. Here's what I think we need to do.
Mhm.
It's okay to say that because you can't pretend you have the answers to everything all the time. I don't.
Totally.
I don't have the answers to things all the time.
Really.
Right? I'm making it up half the time, but I go back to models that I know work and I take calculated risks. But the one
Yeah.
thing that you're helping me double down on is if it is to be, it's up to me. Personal responsibility. I
Yeah.
take ownership, I take responsibility, I'm proactive, right? We talked about proactive, not letting
Mhm.
something fester or realizing I hired the
Yeah.
wrong person. I got to let them go,
Totally.
or not having a system. Listen, am I
Mhm.
understanding your
Yeah,
premise?
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think what you're saying too also sort of shifts that cliche of like fake it till you make it when you're going from that million to 1.5. We don't have to fake it till we make it. The fake part is if you're not letting other people into saying, hey, I've never been here before either. And that's taking the fallacy and the imposter syndrome right out of it.
Mm. Oh, you just mentioned imposter syndrome,
Mhm.
which is foreshadowing. So we're using fancy words today. Looking forward to Thanksgiving, I'm actually going to be speaking to another expert about the imposter syndrome. Leah
Mm.
Diteljan, can you give us 30 seconds on what the imposter syndrome is? And everybody out there, I want you to pay special attention to this right now.
My definition of imposter syndrome is when I am so concerned about what other people will think about who I am and what I'm trying to accomplish that it actually stop or prevents me from doing my best.
Mm, yeah.
And yeah.
Uh, Perfect. My definition is almost the same, but I say it in much more Dom language. I'm looking around and I'm pretty sure everybody knows I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so I almost feel guilty. Like, my shoulders are up and I'm waiting for somebody to walk in and say, "You're a fake. I knew
Totally.
you'd
Like,
never been
don't
a
call me out.
$1.5 million business before. I knew it.
Yeah.
And of course you made that mistake and we got the wrong software and it took too long to implement. And now you ordered a pallet of the wrong wood to the wrong job site. Of course." I'm like, "Oh, I'm busted. I'm busted."
And like, does that ever actually happen?
Oh, no, nobody listening has had
No,
that happen. If
I
you talk to the,
know.
so let's do, you mentioned a cabinet maker earlier. So I'll give
Yeah.
you a cabinet maker example. So a cabinet maker, any of those listening out there who do cabinetry, how many times have you built a white melamine kitchen because it was supposed to be a white oak kitchen, but somebody didn't read the plans right? That
Mm.
happens unfortunately, it happens all the time. Then you've got the contractor side. I mean, we've got great stories here about a contractor who went in and did work on the wrong house. He walked up, he got the address wrong, like he mixed 162 with 126, whatever street. The door was open. He walked in, he started like demolishing a room. And then he had it half rebuilt when the people came home and are like, "Who the heck are you?" And he's like, "Well, I'm the guy. Like, I'm here doing the job." And they're like, "Who? What job?" So, yeah, these things happen.
That's amazing.
Yeah, right. Or a fence that gets built on the wrong side of the property line. So now it's,
Right.
let's just say 4 inches over. And I mean, these things just happen, right?
Right.
But how do you deal with them? And oh, yeah, fun stuff,
That is really fun.
fun stuff, right?
Those are some big obvious mistakes too to overcome imposter syndrome.
Yeah. And then but what happens is that I would get angry
Yeah.
because my team built the fence on the wrong side. And I think
Yeah.
now I need a system for telling my team how to read a property line measurement and what side to put the fence on, except that ultimately I do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ultimately I do. But mistakes happen.
Yeah.
It's just, now how am I going to deal with that? Right.
Well, and is it going to feel better if you go to the client and say, "Hey, Steve, my general contractor is the one that messed this up"? Or is it actually going to feel better to just take ownership as the face of the company and say, "Hey, we really messed up and I know exactly how it went wrong and this is what happened," without putting Steve under the bus and actually just taking ownership. That's the personal responsibility that I think actually makes us feel better, that kind of moves that anger so it's actually productive.
Yeah. I appreciate you saying that because one of the ways that we define this show is that it's for people who want to be a business person who just happens to be a contractor,
Mm.
as opposed to a contractor who runs a few crews, because we all make mistakes. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter what business we're in,
Oh
medical
my gosh.
supplies,
Totally.
delivery. uh, we all make mistakes. But if I'm a business person who just happens to run a bakery, who just happens to run a construction company, who just happens to run a daycare, then you deal with it as a business person does, not like what other, I'll say, lesser contractors are doing,
Mhm.
right? The ones who are always wondering, why is everybody else getting ahead? Blame,
Exactly.
right? Why
Blame,
does everybody else get the
scarcity.
best deals, right? Scarcity. Yeah. Why do I always get bad clients, right?
Mhm.
Deflection, like all of those
Yeah.
things that are the opposite of what you're talking about here today, which is to take ownership, take responsibility, be proactive, be a winner,
Mhm.
look for abundance in this world.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Hmm.
Mhm. Yeah.
We're actually talking about, I didn't realize this until I started studying it more, but a lot of Stoic philosophy comes back to this as well.
Oh, I bet.
Personal responsibility.
Mhm. It's
Have you ever,
empowering.
yeah, sorry to cut you off. Have you ever read The Oz Principle?
No, I
Oh,
haven't actually.
so
No.
it's a book that is really, it was written, let's say, I'll say 10 years ago, and I'm probably wrong. It was either 8 or 12, written a
Mhm.
while ago, but it's actually based on something that came out of a 1970s psychology paper at the University of Melbourne, which is super boring. It's called The Internal or External Locus of Control.
Mm.
And the author of that is Rotter, Rotter, if anybody's really bored and wants to check the academic literature for the weird stuff that you and I study. But it goes back to people who believe that they're in control, or people who believe the world controls them, which comes back to
Mhm.
your dissertation,
Yeah.
your thought on like, hey, why am I actually angry
Mhm.
and what to do about
Yeah.
it?
And if you want to stay in that victim role, go ahead. That is totally draining.
Go ahead. That's totally draining. Uh, When
Yeah.
you see, so without using obviously people's names, tell us a story about a client that you've worked with who's gone from, having this particular issue and after they learn some tools, what it looks like on the other side.
Sure. Oh gosh, I'll try and pick one here. So I'll pick a client that had a pretty fast growth company, and he was unsure if he wanted to keep his CEO.
Mm,
His CEO was a longtime friend and grew up with our family, actually. And so pretty well known to the business, to his interpersonal relationships. And he was wondering if he was the right guy for the job. And
mm,
so after a coaching conversation that we had, I said, "Are you noticing that your CEO has very similar patterns to the last CEO that didn't work out?" And he
mm,
goes, "No." And I said, "Okay. And remember when you were really angry at that last CEO because had kind of stepped out of the day to day and expected them to just run things?" "Yes." "Is that not similar to what's happening right now?" "Yes." "Okay. And why is this bothering you?" "Well, because I want more time. I hired this person. I'm paying them a lot of money to
mhm.
operate the business so I can have more flexibility and freedom, these kinds of things." "Okay. And what's really bothering you about that, though? Who does this person actually remind you of that's really bothering you?" And he picked out it was actually a childhood bully.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
not where I thought this was going.
I
So this,
know.
wow, somebody who'd bullied him as a child.
Had bullied him so bad. They didn't have the exact same name, but it was close. And the way that he was communicating was actually representing this childhood bully. And so that was the anger that was coming out, was he was actually trying to protect himself in a way he wished he would have when he was younger. And so the two CEOs were showing him that past circumstance again. And so
Mm,
he almost fired this CEO who went on to be the one that scaled his company that put him up to have a successful exit. So he didn't end up firing him. He instead went and had a vulnerable conversation and said, "Hey, I actually need to take personal responsibility for the last disagreement we had because
wow.
I didn't communicate with you in a way that you deserve to be communicated in because you reminded me of somebody that has nothing to do with you."
Okay, so he didn't have to say, "You're
No.
reminding me of a schoolyard
No, no,
bully."
no. Nor do you ever have to say that, right? But
Right.
it's taking ownership and just giving enough details so that the empowerment's there and the repair can happen.
And then looking back on that, you obviously, I would imagine you don't know how that CEO reacted, but what did that do for the CEO and company owner?
I do actually know how that CEO reacted, and he was actually completely blown away. He did not expect, the owner to come in and say, basically, "I'm sorry for the way that I spoke, and I'm going to take
Mm,
accountability for it because that wasn't fair to you." And both of them became closer. The trust
closer.
went
Yeah.
better. The trust was
Yeah.
just deeper. Yeah.
I I don't claim to be perfect because I'm not, but I have
Mhm.
found that when I admit that I've done something wrong or haven't made the right decision to my team, it's easier for them to admit it to me faster. Because then
Oh,
we can fix that, right?
yeah.
Instead of hiding or, "No, I didn't do it," or, "No, I didn't know, you didn't tell me."
Yeah.
And when one of the things that I do, and I do
Hmm.
this is, so one of my old companies had
Hmm.
160 staff, right?
Yep.
There's
Hmm.
120 people in the call center, and we were hiring 10 people a week, as like just as fast as we could. And the second slide on day one of training, the first slide was, "Here's how to submit your payroll. Here's what we need from you." That was slide number one. Slide number two was this concept that we're talking about right now, which isn't
Mm.
why you're always angry. It's the personal responsibility slide.
Yeah.
It's the personal responsibility one that comes
It's
from the
huge.
internal or external locus of control. And what it did for our company is it created a situation where if people were outside of that, if they were blamers, if they were negative, if they
Mhm.
were in denial or scarcity type people, other people in the company would come to me and say, "Hey, Dom, I've got somebody here who's really negative. What do I do?"
Yeah.
Because they wouldn't necessarily say, "Hey, it's Leah." They'd
Yeah.
say, I got a negative person. What do I do?" And eventually, 3 people come to me, and the fourth person in that particular office is Leah. I'm pretty much going to figure out it's you. And I
Yeah,
start to
yeah, of
watch and I
course.
realize, okay, so that person is going to make it here or not.
Hmm.
They're going to make it or not.
Yeah. There's two things that stand out to me as you're telling that story. One, I wish we lived in a society when instead of coming to you, they'd go directly to Leah. That's real personal responsibility.
Yeah. Hard, I think, when we're
And
talking about, and
direct.
yeah, let me give them a bit of grace here, though.
Oh,
Entry
okay.
level position.
Okay.
You
Okay.
don't want to, and some people, listen, some people are not ready for the conversation. They're ready for the fight.
Right.
So you go talk to some people and they're like ready to come back at you and they're like a social leader. I'm thinking of a very specific situation where if you
I
told
could.
this person they took the wrong coffee cup, war. It was war. So
Mm,
yeah,
okay. Yeah, that's a bit fragile.
tempered response is maybe the thing. But sorry,
I,
keep going. Keep going.
yeah, I agree, and I think that just comes with the way that culture is too, right? Like it's easier. It's hard to go to the manager about the manager. It's easier to
Oh
go
yeah.
to have that sidebar conversation. The other thing is, I totally agree with you. I love that with slide two. When I was working at EO and we had this team, our team meetings, I used to call them, my team started calling them confessional.
What?
Yeah. Like, guess how I screwed up? And this is
Oh,
how I fixed it. And it
right, right,
just
right.
became hilarious and awesome. And the trust just continued to compile.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I hope that people took from today what they needed, because I think everybody who listened to this episode needed something different. If somebody has more questions and wants to talk to you privately, because obviously this would be a private thing, how do we find you in this wide world? How do we ask you questions privately?
Sure. You can connect with me on LinkedIn if you'd like. That's probably a great place, or I can give you my email. My website is www.mindspamovement.com. I'd be
Mind
happy to
Spa, SPA.
movement.com.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's right.
movement.com. That's probably a little
Movement.com.
easier than spelling it. Your last name is beautiful, but it's if you've never seen it, you might have. And so it's
Yeah.
Leah Diteljan, Diteljan.
Hmm. That's right. Only one in the world. So if you found me, it's me.
Are you the only Leah Diteljan in the world?
According to Google, yeah.
According to Google and LinkedIn and Facebook.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's kind of
Mhm.
cool.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And then mindspa.com.
Mindspamovement.com.
Oh, mindspamovement.com.
Hmm.
Yeah. How did you,
Hmm.
kind of stepping back, how did they find you or select you for this
Experience.
facilitation in Croatia? And I know you do lots of different, like that's not the only thing you do all year, but this is the topical one. How did they find you for this?
Okay, there's nothing sexy about this story, but the gentleman who owns the company, which is called Solomorne, is his bot found me on LinkedIn.
Oh, there you go. And so they knew
So
what they were looking for. And
yeah, yeah, we had
yeah,
so many mutual connections and just really aligned on our values. Hmm.
wow. What
Hmm.
other kinds of speakers or what other kind of learning tracks were at this event?
I was the main facilitator, and then we kind of had yoga and workout sessions in the morning.
Oh, that
Mhm.
sounds very relaxing.
It
Very,
was, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
A mutual friend of ours, somebody that we both
Hmm.
know, we won't mention the name here, did a silence retreat. So
Ooh,
he went to a
Vipassana.
retreat. Yeah, is that what it's called? The
Hmm.
past,
Hmm.
where he didn't speak for, I can't remember if it was a 10 or 15 day, and he said it was better than an MBA,
Hmm. I
not
believe it.
speaking, and
Yeah.
working on different mindfulness and meditation things. I think that
Hmm.
all of us should be looking for whatever type of leadership training speaks to us.
Hmm.
We have other
Yeah,
friends who've gone on their ayahuasca
exactly.
journeys, and that's not my thing.
Right. I
But I
can't
know
picture a
people that,
silent one being your thing either, but hey, it's for
could you
somebody,
imagine the
right?
noise in my head and the steam coming off my scalp?
Why are you actually angry, Dom?
Because I can't talk. Oh my God. Yeah, that would be me running into the forest. Blah, blah, blah.
So funny. So
Talking to the
funny.
snails and fish and the monkeys. Yeah. Leah, thank you very much for coming on here. I can't believe this is the first time you've been a guest on the show, given how long you and I have known each other and how many other
Mhm.
guests you referred to me. People don't know that you're in the background of a couple of other really powerful episodes.
Well, my pleasure. I love what you do and how you do it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I'm sure in the future we'll have you back again. Thanks, Leah.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye bye. Okay. Thank you, Leah, for joining us for that episode. I wonder what you pulled from that episode, what you took from that, what you learned, what you needed to hear. And Leah's delivery is so professional, so calm, so peaceful. I know she's been studying this for a long time, and she's very centered in what does. And she's an excellent coach, and I'm so proud to have her on the show. She's been a friend of mine for a long time. And that trip that we took as a board to Frankfurt, Germany, was a group of people like me, uh, high energy, high opinion, uh, talky, chatty, funny, goofy entrepreneurs. And she kept us all reined in pretty good, and centered and level. She did a great job of it. So today, listen, we're going to simplify and solve a common problem. And instead of me telling you the problem, I'm going to illustrate it through an email that Noel sent me. Now, Noel is not his real name, although his name starts with N. And Noel, I know you and Paul is his dad, are listening to the show. So, of course, you know who you are, N and P, and you'll recognize this from the story. But I wanted to take your email, Noel, and use it as an illustration for how people can look at their business from a different angle and figure out where some solutions can be found. So here's a little bit of a background before I read the email. The dad, Paul, is originally from Germany. The mom is Hispanic. They started the business in the late 80s. Noel, the son, moved away to play semi-pro baseball. Then he stayed on the East Coast for a while. While he was on the East Coast, he sold commercial roofing supplies. And then his dad asked him to come back, and he's been home in the Mideast for 4 years, and they do home renos. Now, what has changed for them is Noel's family is growing, which is nice to hear. But that causes some other stresses and strains and different ways of looking at the world. You're now about to become a dad, take care of more people than you've had before, and all of the things that go with it, right? So here is the email. The title is Need Some Clarity, Struggling with Balance in the Business. Hey, Don. Hope you're doing well. I'm reaching out because I'm at a bit of a breaking point with our business and need some outside perspective. Dad and I have been doing renos since the 80s, and while we've grown to about 1 million, it feels like we're always scrambling and getting stuck. So let me just stop right there. How often have you been in that situation where you've reached some sort of level, some sort of glass ceiling, and you just feel stuck? And by the way, they've been doing around 1 million in sales. That's fine. That's their story. Maybe yours is at 3 million. Maybe yours is at 600,000. Heck, maybe yours is at 20 million. One of my clients has $40 million in booked work until next year. Another one of our clients, so these are people coached by Jake or by Lee or by Ryan, has $7 million already booked into next year. And then there's a whole slew of people that are just trying to figure out how to get past their first million. So wherever you are in the growth of your business, I don't want you to listen to the show and feel bad or feel like you're not doing the right thing. By listening to this show and by taking action, you are doing the right thing. You're just getting on the path to growth and success. So we'll get back to Noel's email here, right? Let me just go back a little bit. Dad and I have been doing renos since the 80s, and while we've grown to about 1 million in sales, it feels like we're always scrambling and getting stuck. He goes on to say, our best year we did 1.2, and last year we barely hit 900K. Here's the thing. My dad and I are both doers. Dad is definitely old country, old school, and people love it. They like having a European craftsman. I played pretty high level ball, and I'm still pretty competitive and active. I did not think that sentence would be that hard to read out loud. I played pretty high level ball, and I'm still pretty competitive and active. He goes on to say, people love working with us and we do good work. So here's where he starts to get into some of the challenges, right? We already know old country craftsman, European craftsman. Of course, people like that. We've got a competitive guy and a very skilled guy, and it sounds like very personable, like people like them. So that's good. So he goes on to say, we're both on the tools every day, managing the guys, keeping projects moving, trying to handle the business side in between. It's not sustainable. How many times do we hear that in conversations when we're talking to those of you who reach out? It's just not sustainable. At some point, you have to put gas back in the tank that is Noel and Paul. You just can't work that much, that hard all the time, especially when you don't see the business work. You're taking care of the business, but the business isn't taking care of you. And it's fixable, right? That's what he's talking to me about here. So he goes, it's not sustainable. I worked with Dad before college, then I went away, but I've been back for 4 years. And I gave you guys the backstory there. Honestly, selling roofing supplies was easier. And now I'm right back to working 60 plus hour weeks, and I don't see a way out. My family life is suffering, and honestly, I'm frustrated that I can't find time to focus on growth or even basic admin without feeling overwhelmed. So, how many times have you been in a situation where you think, oh my God, I need an admin. I need somebody to take care of the little details in the background so I can take care of the big things. Or maybe you've had a day where you said, I got nothing done today that I had originally planned to get done. And think about the impact that that has on your business. That's 1 out of 250 days. Assuming you work 5 days a week, 50 weeks a year, that's 1 out of 250 days that you didn't put a win on the board because you didn't do any of the big things. You just got stuck in the admin, or you got stuck halfway between the two, or maybe you rushed something. And we know what happens when we rush things in contracting. That comes out to be a mistake later on. So there is a lot going on inside this company that we see in a lot of companies, right? Let me back up here. I can't find the time to focus on growth or even basic admin without feeling overwhelmed. One frustration is that we're constantly putting out fires, and I feel like I'm just reacting instead of being proactive, like you talk about on the show. Every day is another urgent problem, and it's exhausting. Your show is a bit of a break for us. My dad didn't even know what podcasts were until I told him to listen to your show. He likes it, and it gives us something to talk about. That's nice. If you could give me one simple solution to help with this, something that could help me take control of even just one area, I'd appreciate it more than you know. Look forward to hearing from you. Best regards. And then I will say his name is Noel. Now, his name is not Noel. Obviously, I don't like to share names unless I've been given the permission to do so. So we're going to call him Noel, or them, Noel and Paul, the Reno guys. Look, this is a pretty common email that we get where somebody says, look, we're just reached a breaking point. We working hard has stopped working. We are going full tilt all the time, but that gas tank, that tank just starts to get, it's harder and harder to keep going all the time. Then usually some problem happens. Maybe it's an accounts receivable thing. Maybe a customer gets mad and then they start pointing at the contract. That's never good. And you just start to think there has got to be a better way. And there is a better way. We'll get to some of the solutions here in a second. Usually people hear an episode and like one of the professional development tools that we have, and they ask for it. And it's my hope. I hope they take the tool and then go grab a coffee and work on the tool. And you guys have heard me say this before. When you get the professional development tools from me, print it off. First download it so it's on your hard drive. Now it's yours forever. You can share it with your kids. You can share it with your managers. You can share it with your friends. Share it, right? What's the harm? Take this powerful, valuable tool and share it. But most importantly, I want you to print that thing off, and I want you to go to a really nice coffee shop. I want you to treat yourself. Get your favorite kind of coffee, get your favorite kind of muffin or Danish, whatever it is, and sit in the corner, put in your headphones, face the corner so nobody bugs you, and just work on the professional development tool. I'm actually giving you the stuff that we do in business coaching to do it on your own. Now, if you get stuck, reach back out to us. But just doing the exercise makes you the kind of person who does forward-facing exercises. That's it, right? So my hope is that you'll take the tool and work on the tool. But I've come to learn over the years that many people never give themselves the time to sit down and do it, to think about the business and work through the exercises, right? So people will say, why the heck do you need a business coach? They're just going to tell you what you already need, to do. Does that make sense? They're just going to tell you what you already know you need to do. Well, yeah, that's the same reason that people that run marathons get a marathon coach. That's the same. Leah and I were just joking about the barbecue thing. I'll bet you that people that are really into competitive barbecue have people that they lean on, like people who understand meat selection or how to make sauces or how to prepare meats or wood selection. So they're still looking for outside perspective. At the same time, I can go outside and fire up my barbecue. I could pull down my charcoal barbecue. I can make some wood on the fire. We just did that when we went hunting last week. I don't need a coach to tell me how to barbecue a steak. And yet there's people out there that want to be really good at barbecue who take it so seriously that they look for the fine details. It's the same thing for any of us here, right? Take the time, sit down, proactively think about the business and get really good at it. Work through the exercises. Anyways, however you approach it, it's okay. I'm always here to help. And so is everybody else on my team. And I'm glad Noel reached out. So let me go. Thank you. That's the kind of the end of Noel and Paul's email. But the background to that is, or I guess what happened next, I should say, is we got on a call. me and Noel and his dad. Okay. So what's important is that all the decision makers, all the people who have something to say in the business are on that meeting. You can't have a meeting without all of the big people there, right? So just for fun, we've said their names are Noel and Paul. But at the end of the day, the real issue in front of me is this. The core issue would be lack of delegation. So they don't have to have their hands in everything all the time. The other core issue is no systems. Remember, we talk about simple systems here. Here's an example of what I mean by a simple system. Let's say you've got a problem with quality in your company. You're just not seeing product being built the way you want, or you're not seeing processes happen the way, let's say you build fences or do renos like these guys. One of the very simple systems is to create something called a process flowchart. Sometimes you call it value stream mapping. Pretty fancy word from lean manufacturing. But think of a flowchart, where you've got one action leads to the next action. There's a little arrow that says go to the next thing. There's an arrow that says go to the next thing. Right? Just a flowchart. Now I want you to imagine that you've got different departments, right? You've got a guy in charge of cutting things and you've got a guy in charge of assembling things. I'm going to keep it super basic here. You got somebody in charge of cutting stuff and you got somebody in charge of assembling stuff, right? So the flow chart says that after the guys, this is the process we follow for cutting stuff. Okay, that's great. Then the flow chart also says this is the process we have for we got cutting, and then we've got, oh my God, I just drew a blank here, assembling stuff. So imagine that happening in your company, right? All we're going to do is add a simple system to the end of the cutting guy's job and the beginning of the assembly guy's job. And here it is. At the very last stage of the cutting guy's job is, are you proud of your work? If not, go back and fix it. We are proud craftsmen. So that's his flow chart, whatever his steps are. Step 1, 2, 3, 4, 27, 28, 29. No, I don't care. But the last step is, are you proud of your work? If not, go back and fix it. We are proud craftsmen. And that's written. That's how we do it. That's Rubino contracting way of doing things, right? So that's good, but that's only half the simple system. The second part that dovetails along with that is the first part of the assembly guy's system is this. Did you receive quality work? If not, send it back. We are proud craftsmen. So now I've got to give that empowerment, you would call it. I've got to give the assembly guy the permission to send work back up the stream. And I've got to give the cutting guy the knowledge to know that if he doesn't send quality work to assembly, it's going to get sent back. It doesn't take long for that little circle to round itself out, right? That's a simple system. That's one example of a simple system. But these guys had no systemization, which means you're reinventing the business. You're reinventing the wheel every time, every project. What a hard way to live, which is no wonder they're being pulled apart. Literally, their skin from their bone. They're just always running 60-hour weeks and never getting ahead. Anyways, I dug a bit further and we found out profitability is also an issue. No surprise, right? Because they take their jobs from referrals and word of mouth and they want to stay busy. Because they're going crazy busy here working on job A, job B floats across the table and they're like, just take it. We got to stay busy. We'll worry about it later. But they're not choosing the projects. They don't have a system for choosing the projects. They don't have a simple system for identifying their perfect customers. So they work on referrals and word of mouth, which is fantastic. It's fantastic. But it doesn't mean that it always is going to give you the highest profit and the best jobs, right? It doesn't mean that. There's 1,000 directions I could go on that because my team and I see this all day, right? You have to know which jobs are the best, which jobs make you the most, and which jobs have the least amount of hassle factor. And some of you have told me you call it PITA, pain in the, what would A stand for? Pain in the attic. Actually, that works, but that's not the A word I meant, right? Do you have a PITA factor? Is this customer going to be a pain in the attic? And if they are, we're not doing the job, or we're going to charge for the pain in the attic that they're going to give us. So what was my solution in our phone call? Well, to be honest, I sent them away. Yep. I got the entire leadership team together. We got Noel and Paul and me together. It's just a 30-minute meeting. You got to go away. After our meeting, go talk as business partners, as father and son, and decide what you really want for this company. Go away. Do they want to keep reinventing the wheel, or do they want to find the kind of tools other contractors are already using? And are they willing to put them in place, or do they just want to keep doing the same things? Is this just lip service? Is it enough for them to say, well, we tried. we talked to Dominic, we talked to the contractor wealth system, we talked to profit tool belt, we tried. Or do they really want to do something? The hardest part for them is they can't see how they could possibly find the time to be off the tools and working with my team to figure out how to get ahead. And they said, Dom, we're already busy. How is this going to fit in our schedule? In the beginning, it's going to be hard. You probably thought I was going to have some clever answer, but no, in the beginning, it's going to be hard to fit that hour in there. And yet you have to do it. The discipline of doing it is going to pay off in the long run. Remember the intro for today. Before you do anything, something else has to be done first. So in this case, Noel and Paul have to decide to use their time a little bit differently to get them a different outcome. I know this is going a bit long, but I do want to give you a visual to think about when we talk about doing something different to get a different outcome. I want you to picture your office at home, and your office at home has a window. When it gets a little stuffy, you open that window just a little bit, right? Not too much. It's going to get too cold. You don't keep it closed. It's just going to get stuffy. But you come in one morning, getting ready to do some office work, and there's a fly in your office. And you see that fly flying around, you think to yourself, it's his lucky day. I left the window open an inch. He's going to be able to find it. And as you're working away, you hear the fly buzzing, zzz, and then you start to hear zzz, thunk. And that fly, with all of his force and energy, all of his strength, he flies straight into that window, into the glass, right? Zzz, thunk, zzz, thunk, zzz, thunk, thunk, zzz, thunk. And you think to yourself, buddy, like, change your angle a bit, move to the left. The window's open. The fly is willing to work hard, but nobody's shown him how to work smart. Yeah, sure, you could go open the window the whole way, but that's not the point of the story, right? What happens tomorrow when you walk in the office? Where's that fly? The fly certainly was not guilty of not working hard. He hit that window every single time the same. Zzz, thunk, zzz, thunk, zzz, thunk, zzz, thunk. And he does it until he dies. All he needed was a little guidance to move to the left a little bit and go out the window. It's open an inch. Why doesn't he see that? Why doesn't he smell the fresh air? Why doesn't he feel the fresh? I don't know why. You have to use your time differently to get a different outcome. You have to put working smarter, not just harder. Having the perspective, right? Anyways, look, Paul immigrated from an entirely different country. He didn't even speak the language. At some point in Germany, he decided he wanted a better life. He had to sacrifice and make some changes to do it. Immigrating has to be hard, especially legally, right? It has to be hard. Noel played high-level baseball. He understands discipline. He knows what it takes to work hard with nobody watching for that one hope that one day a scout is in the stands and sees him make the play he needs to. He has, if he's an athlete at any level, he understands waking up early, running in the dark, running in the rain, getting cut from teams, trying out again, eating healthy, eating properly with no guaranteed place on any team anywhere. He just has that internal desire to go ahead. That's what athletes do. So both of these guys don't lack any desire or ability to work hard. Anyways, I guess the end of the story is I sent them away. They have to decide what's next, and it's up to them to get back to me. Right? So right now they're considering two things. I might as well wrap up with this. They're considering doing one-on-one business coaching, which actually has 3 meetings a month, 1 with me and 2 with their business coach. There's to do the actual tactical implementation, like getting stuff done. So there's 3 meetings a month when you're doing a certain level of coaching with us. They could also do boot camp if that's up their alley. They've got lots of options. They have even more options than that, but I'm not going to get into it. The point here is not to do with our side here. The point is that Noel and Paul have to decide what they want. And once they have decided, all of the excuses fall away and stuff starts to happen. Lots of options. Always the same outcome, clarity. So all that being said, here are some suggestions for you if you found any resonance in the story of Noel and Paul or with Leah's interview today. Thanks again, Leah, for that. The very first professional development tool that I think you want, especially if you need big picture perspective, maybe you and a partner like Noel and Paul need to take a step back. And before you even talk to me, figure out what you really want. What do you really, really want? And so it's a little bit early for this in terms of the year, but there's something called the Healthy, Wealthy, Wise Planner. So the Healthy, Wealthy, Wise Planner is a grid. Let's say on one side of the grid is healthy, wealthy, and wise, 3 different columns. And on the other is personal, business, and another secret category. You'll get it when you get the download. But this professional development tool urges you to sit back and look at your business from the highest level. Remember what I said earlier, before you do anything, you have to do something else first. Maybe it has to start in your mind. Isn't it funny? We're talking about contracting and all I talk about is mindset, the mindset of success, the mindset of a guy that immigrated from Germany and started a business, not even in his first language, and built it to where he can now have his son working there. And now the son and him together are saying, what's the next level look like? Where do we have to go next? Right? What's that mindset for you? That internal fire nobody can stop. I can't stop it. You can't stop. You don't even know where it came from, but it's in you. Well, let's harness that, right? So the healthy, wealthy, wise planner. If you want that, just say healthy, wealthy, wise, and send me a text. You guys know the number. The other one is the go back calculator. Now, the go back calculator, as you know, has a couple of different names. It's the go back calculator because we use it to understand how much it costs us to go back to a job that wasn't finished properly. What does it cost us to go back and finish that fence? What does it cost us to go back and finish that roof? What does it cost us to go back and adjust the hinges again? What does it cost us to go back and look at the tiling? What does it cost? What's the actual cost? You could stick your head in the sand and ignore it, but it's there, right? So it's called the go back calculator. It's also called the 1 hour calculator. What is 1 hour of your company worth? It's one Excel worksheet, right? And there's just 10 questions. You can find out. You don't need an accountant even to do this. You know these numbers. But every single expense, you know how much 1 hour of your time is worth. Because I want to remind you, when I hire your company to work for me, I'm basically renting your company for X amount of hours. So if that's the case, how much does it cost to rent your company for just 1 hour? Now, of course, that's ridiculous. Who's going to rent your company for an hour? Nobody's going to do that. You wouldn't take that job, right? But you do need to know what it costs for that 1 hour. And then there are some simple systems you put in place after that. But first, you have to know your number. So the 1 hour, the go back calculator is the way you figure out that number. Then there's something here we don't talk about a lot on the show, although it really applies to most of the things we talk about. It's called how to find and fix the 8 profit leaks in your construction business. There are 8 profit leaks any contracting business has. If you want that one, just text me the word profit leaks and I'll send it off. There are 8 profit leaks and they are slowly oozing the life out of your business. So no matter how hard you work, you take one step forward, there might be eight different leaks pulling you backward, which is why you feel like you can't get ahead. Or in the case of Noel, we're about $1 million business. Our best year was 1.2. Last year, we struggled to hit 900. There's that $1 million they're floating around and they're like, how do we become 1.5? It seems impossible, Dom, when you talk about somebody getting to 3 million and 5 million. You heard Al's story just the other day, absolutely rocking it. Look, and he's a home renovator up in Winnipeg. How did he make those leaps and bounds? Well, I'll tell you what, it wasn't easy. And if you asked him, it wasn't easy. It took a lot of discipline on his part, a lot of vision, a lot of patience, and a lot of just sticking to it and getting the work done, running in the rain, getting up early, just like we were talking about with the athlete, doing the work that nobody else was ever going to see. And now suddenly multi-million-dollar home renovator in Winnipeg because he decided he was going to be. And there's nothing in this world that would ever stop Al. Anyways, I know this sounds like a long summary, but it's a pretty juicy meeting with 2 very capable contractors. Look, we should meet. If you decide that it's time to even be curious about this, send me a text, right? My cell phone number is 315-903-7853. Ask for any one of these 3 things. So profit leaks, go back, or healthy, wealthy, wise. Or if you just want to meet, say, Dom, let's meet. And you know what we'll do? We'll meet. And here, by the way, here's what happens. Here's the process that Noel and Paul are on right there. The first meeting is 30 minutes. It's just a really quick meet and greet. You have some questions. I have a ton of questions to ask you before I set aside an hour on my calendar because I'm not around to chit chat. If we've got a job to do, let's figure out what the job is and get to it. So if we both decide to have another meeting, that meeting will be an hour. And by the way, you can say no to a 1 hour meeting and I could say no to a 1 hour meeting. We say no to lots of people that want to meet again, but they have some crazy, wacky idea, or they don't have a good business, or they don't take care of their customers, or they don't take care of their people, or they just don't have that fire inside them. And I know the questions to ask. We know the questions to ask to find that, right? Now, before you come back to that meeting, you have to fill in a quick application form. This is your chance to sit back and do a little homework. Think about your business as a business person. It's like 10 or 12 questions. It's not going to there's no written test, right? But you still have to fill in this thing. It also helps make sure that we make the most of our time because you're busy and I can only talk to the most serious and committed contractors. And then we have our meeting, like I just did. In that meeting, I'm going to give you real actionable steps that are customized to you, not generic, like we have to do in a podcast or in a book or in an article, etc. Right? My goal in those meetings, by the way, is that you learn more in 30 minutes or even in an hour than most other people do in a year. So you guys know my cell phone number. Shoot me a text message anytime. I look forward to talking to you. And as you guys know, I really look forward to the day when you and I can have a cup of coffee or a glass of wine across the table from each other. It's actually why I do this. The podcast is thin soup, as you've heard me say. I really want one day for us to actually, I'm going to be speaking for the American Fencing Association in Branson, Missouri in December. If any of you are going to be in Branson, or if you're in Branson, reach out and let me know. I fly through DFW as well, but I think I'm only there for an hour and 20, so that'd be too tight to meet. But we could find a way if we decide to find a way. So let's do that. Thanks for checking in, folks. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you listening to Leah. She is fantastic to work with. And if you reach out to her, you won't be disappointed. Have a great day. We'll talk to you soon.